Hi, I'm Bridget Eslinger, and welcome to episode 5 of the Health Warrior series. Today we're going to talk about autoimmune diseases. You definitely want to stick around. Come back. Welcome back. I'm so glad you joined me here today. This topic I'm very passionate about. If you've been following me at all and you've been following the Health Warrior series, you all know that I do suffer from autoimmune disease called mixed connective tissue disease. So this subject today is something I really want to share with you to help you understand, to let you know that it is something that you can recover from. You definitely don't have to be labeled and say that you have a autoimmune disease and live with that for the rest of your life. You can take control of your health and find ways to counteract the symptoms that you're having, subside those symptoms, and be much healthier. So let's dive in, and I'll share with you my tips of the trade, what I've done to help myself, and maybe something you can do to integrate into your life. So first off, let's figure out what your autoimmune system is and what it does for you. So we all hear our immune system, or if we get sick, you hear somebody say, my immune system is weak. But really, your immune system is made up of all your cells, your tissues, and several of your organ systems, primarily your gut. Now, we've talked about this in an earlier episode, the leaky gut. But your gut is your largest immune organ in the body. To be exact, it is 70 to 80% of your immune system. So when we talk about that, your immune system runs all the way from our mouths down through our digestive system into our stomach and all the way out the back end. So as you can tell, 70 to 80% of our immune system really is that digestive tract, what we call our gut system. So anything that we eat, anything that comes into our body is truly affecting our immune system. So I can't stress how important it is that the quality of the food that we eat, the things that we surround ourselves with, all have a tremendous impact on this immune system. So let's get a little deeper here. It protects us from everything that we come in contact with. If you remember in the leaky gut episode, we talked about how we can end up with a permeable gut. So that allows all the bad invaders to seep through and go to the outside. We don't want that. We want to keep our immune system, our gut, in good health, right? So our autoimmune, there's two responses you can have. When that happens, in that leaky gut scenario that I just described, your immune system can have two responses. An autoimmune response is something that is, systematic. It's a condition that your body begins to attack healthy tissues. Your body can no longer distinguish itself from other. So some types of autoimmune conditions that may fall in this category are like celiac and type 1 diabetes, right? The malfunction of your adaptive immune system. Okay, this is like the memory. This is a known memory function that happens, and I like to refer to this as like the sniper. When something comes in the body, your body sees it, it thinks it's an invader, and that sniper attacks it. Even though it could be something good, your body is mistaking that for something bad, and that's like a sniper response. Okay? So that can happen over time. You don't want your body, you don't want that sniper to be shooting at things that are really good for you. You don't want it attacking your pancreas. We don't want it attacking our systems and end up with type 1 diabetes, those types of things. Then we have an auto-inflammatory response. So we've all heard about this, right? We may have inflammation in our body, or you have an inflammatory response. And some of the things that I can point to quickly, and we talked about this, about how amazing the body is if you break an ankle or you sprain your ankle, you swell. If something contacts our skin and it's uncomfortable, we swell, right? That's the body's automatic system to help us. So that autoimmune response typically first is inflammation. So an auto-inflammatory response is what's happening when something, an invader, comes into the body and your system has an inflammatory response. Now, in some cases, that could be great, and we want that. But in a lot of cases, we don't want that inflammatory response. It's very detrimental to our immune system. Remember, all the way from our digestive tract all the way down to the back end. If you have a lot of inflammation and it ends up chronic inflammation for long periods of time, that's where the body really starts to break down and it has a hard time repairing itself. Now, if it's quick and it happens and you can repair yourself and you move on, that's great. But a chronic inflammatory response that carries on for long periods of time is really where the body breaks down. Now, here's where I can share some of my personal story with you. I was diagnosed with mixed connective tissue disease, which is, it's inflammation, and it's inflammation that runs rampant through the whole body. So rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Sjögren's disease, all those things were, I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. But at the end of the day, when you calm the inflammation, and I'm going to get into how we do that here in just a second, but when you calm that inflammation, all those symptoms subside. And we have to remember that this connection between our immune system, our gut, and our brain, okay, they are connected. So when you talk about brain fog and you talk about not feeling well or chronic fatigue, let's get into some deeper things like Crohn's disease. It is an inflammatory response that's happening in the body. Sometimes it's very localized for some people. We're all bio-individual. We're all made up differently. And other times it is throughout the entire system. And so it's being that investigator. It's trying to figure out what is causing that inflammatory response. So back to Health and Wellness Bootcamp, we have to get back to the basics, get back and reset our bodies, and give ourselves a clean slate so our systems can repair. So on that auto-inflammatory response, I talked about the autoimmune response as being a sniper. The auto-inflammatory response, I really call that like our armed forces. That is your innate system. It's one that we were born with. So our body knows it's trying to fight something off. So I call that our autoimmune response is our military response. Causes of autoimmune diseases. So I kind of went into this just a second ago. Inflammation is a big one, but let's dive into some other contributing factors to autoimmune disease. Genetic susceptibility. So if you know that diabetes runs in your family, could you be susceptible to it? Absolutely. And the reason for that is our genes do carry from generation to generation. So if you have parents who don't have a healthy immune system and you're born, you perhaps may not have a healthy immune system. And the second thing is exposure to an antigen or environmental factors which trigger your immune system. Remember, I talked about leaky gut. If your gut is having a hard time and it's permeable and it's allowing those invaders to seep through into your system, that's going to wreak havoc. You're going to have an inflammatory response. So, and that's number 3. That's that leaky gut scenario that I just described. So there's a sensitivity to something, you have an intolerance to something, your body is talking to you, and you have to really listen to that and find out what it is. And it could be a whole host of things. There could be all kinds of invaders that are going on in your system. It could be something you've eaten. It could be something in your environment. So again, we have to get back to the basics, reset the body, and let it heal on its own. And sometimes that can be hard. For instance, in my personal journey, I had to do what is called an elimination diet. And I know that sounds daunting and scary, but trust me, there's plenty of things you can eat on an elimination diet, and it's really getting back to the basics. Eating good, whole, fresh fruits and vegetables, minimizing the amount of meat that you eat, and making sure that it's good quality meat, protein, when you do eat it. Not processed lunch meats or something out of a carton bag, something like that. Making sure that it's humanely raised, making sure that it's not full of antibiotics. When our meat is grown, whether it's chicken, beef, whatever it is, sometimes the environments that they are raised in and the hormones and the things that are pumped into those animals carry through to us, right? Those things don't get killed through the processing of that meat when it ends up on our table. So the closer you can get to the source of food you're eating and cleaning up our environments, we talked about our toxin load in a previous episode of the Health Warrior series. If you clean up your environment and clean up what we're putting on our plates, chances are you're going to feel so much better. And I'm going to give you some examples going forward. But for my journey, that elimination diet was something that reset the clock for me. And when I was told, here's what you need to do, here is this diet you need to follow, and I hate using the word diet because it really isn't a diet, it's a lifestyle. When you are diagnosed with something that is affecting your life and you don't have good quality of life, you're willing to do whatever you need to do in making sure that you make that lifestyle shift so you can live a prosperous, good life and have good health and do the things that you want to do without being on a whole bunch of prescription medicines and things like that. So this elimination lifestyle that I'm on is I really do limit the things that I eat. I don't eat processed foods. I don't eat a bunch of meat. I eat good whole fruits, fresh fruits and vegetables, and I can't tell you the difference that that's made in my life. 99% of my symptoms have subsided, and I'm on absolutely no prescription medicine. So when we talk about autoimmune disease, I challenge you, you can be labeled, you can have that diagnosis and be labeled. You can take the prescription drug that's just going to mask the symptoms, right? We're not getting to the root cause of what's causing your autoimmune disease. So you can take that route, or you can kind of make this shift and say, I want to know what's causing this. I don't want to just address the symptoms I'm having. I want to know what's causing my autoimmune disease. And 9 times out of 10, you can really get to that. But here's a word of caution. The longer that we allow our bodies to be in that state of autoimmune, right? An auto response to our immune system is happening. So your body is sending you signals. Something's happening. I'm having a symptom, and I need you to help me address it. Instead of just masking that with a prescription drug, find the root cause, and chances are you'll feel so much better when you really get to the bottom of that. So here, I just talked about this, the autoimmune label. There are so many out there. I couldn't even list them all here. But if you just did a Google search on autoimmune diseases, you would be amazed at the things that come up. So some of the things that I just talked about, the symptoms that would be a trigger for you to maybe listen to, you have chronic fatigue, you have some joint pain, and that can be anywhere. Again, people may feel it in their hands, you may feel it in your knees, in your hips, joint pain, okay, that in your back, it's anywhere. We talked about the swelling and redness. Obviously, we know when we break a bone or sprain an ankle or a wrist, you're going to have some swelling and redness. But if your skin is inflamed, you have eczema, psoriasis, again, that's an inflammatory response that's happening in the skin. So that's something to pay attention to. You constantly have a low-grade fever. And there's no given reason why. You're not, you don't have a cold or a flu, but you just have this chronic low-grade fever. So let me just dive into this just for a quick second. When we have a high fever, you hear that we have to use a word of caution when our kids have a high fever. Let me just share with you, that is your immune system trying to kill an invader, right? It raises the temperature in our body to kill off whatever antigen is in there that it doesn't want. So although fevers can be very dangerous in small children, we want them to have that fever to kill off whatever's going on in their body. But again, we don't want to mask that with bringing the fever down with a, prescription medicine or over-the-counter, Tylenol, ibuprofen. You really want to monitor that, find the root cause. So again, when you have a fever, don't just correlate it to, I can't have a high fever. Remember, your body's talking to you that it is trying to kill off something that's in your system that doesn't belong there. Hopefully that makes sense. Brain fog, we talked about that just ever so slightly, but brain fog is like that. you wake up in the morning, you can't really function, you're just kind of groggy, and that lasts throughout the whole day, and maybe that goes on for several days or weeks. That's not a normal state. And a lot of people attribute brain fog or chronic fatigue, let me just use that as well. They attribute that to, I'm just tired, I have a lot going on in my life, work is stressful. Granted, all those things are contributors, but when we are our healthiest, when we feel our best, those symptoms don't really creep up on us. We're able to deal with those, and our bodies don't get bogged down with brain fog or chronic fatigue. Say that 10 times fast. Numbness or tingling, hair loss, skin rashes. I talked about this when I talked about redness or swelling. Really pay attention when you have symptoms that creep up on you or things that are going on in your body. That's really a message. It's something that you need to listen to and try and get to the root cause. So again, there's tons of symptoms, there's tons of autoimmune diseases, and some of the organs that it can affect, major organs, your glands, your tissue, joints. We talked about all that. So targeting the cause. And I touched on this earlier, and I want to share with you. I touched on how I kind of reversed my autoimmune condition. Now, that's not to say that I don't have days where I may feel it creep up on me. I do, and I'll be completely honest. And like I told you, the longer we allow our bodies to be in that state where we're inflamed or there's something going on and we're not addressing the root symptoms, it can take some time. So I'm not out of the woods yet. So it's really up to me and the decisions that I make in my life where I don't allow those symptoms to creep back up on me. But again, life is life, and I understand that. You just have to do what you need to do for your body to make sure that you are your healthiest. So you can reverse your autoimmune disease. There's many different bodily expressions. We talked about this for autoimmune diseases, and a wide variety of triggers. There's so many triggers. So it could be food, and gluten is one of them. I will have an episode on just gluten coming up for the Health Warrior series, so stay tuned for that. But gluten is so hard for our bodies, and a lot of people don't understand that. And gluten is in almost anything that we eat. It is a tough protein for our bodies to digest, and it can cause an inflammatory response, and it's like a sensitivity or an intolerance for most people. I don't want to spoil it, so stay tuned for that episode on gluten. Anything can cause an inflammatory response. We talked about the environment. You have to find the root cause for yourself. And again, get back to the basics. It could just be as simple as changing your diet for 3 weeks or 21 days, whatever that looks like for you. Seeing if your inflammation can be reduced. And if you do experience, your symptoms subside, and that's great, then you're on the right track. Perhaps, maybe it's your environment. Let's shift there for a second. Maybe you have a sensitivity to, artificial fragrances or mold or lead. Those are things in our environment that could really wreak havoc, and we don't even correlate that. Lyme disease is another big one that people struggle with and may have and don't realize it if you live in an area where maybe there's ticks. I know here in Ohio we do have those. So if you are a hiker or you spend a lot of time outdoors, maybe you've had a tick on you and you've pulled it off and you thought nothing of it. That could be something you could ask your healthcare provider about, is what's the chance I have Lyme disease if you're having symptoms, right? Something to look at. So we talked about diet, reducing sugar and gluten. Again, stay tuned for the gluten episode. When we say restore the microbiome, that's really our gut. That really happens through our diet, and I shared that with you about the things that we eat. You really need to watch the food source. So the closer you can get to the food source, the better off you're going to be. Making sure that you're drinking enough water. Again, We filter the oil in our car. We have air filters in our home. And guess what? Water is the filter for our bodies. The water helps push everything through our systems and make sure that everything is flowing smoothly. So you want to make sure that you're drinking good quality water, and that doesn't mean a bunch of iced tea or coffee as water. No, water is water, and it needs to be just water. So keep that in mind. Sunshine, right? We need to get out. We need to enjoy the outdoors. Sunshine provides vitamin D. Our bodies don't make vitamin D. And vitamin D, it acts like a hormone in our body, and it is desperately needed to make sure that your immune system works optimally. Exercise, we all know this, right? We are meant to be mobile. We need to have movement in our day every day, and that doesn't mean you have to go do 100 burpees or 200 push-ups, because again, that can have a counter effect on some people. But gentle movement in your everyday, go for a 5-minute walk, every 2 hours. Maybe you go for a 30-minute walk at the end of your day. Maybe you do some gentle yoga, something of that nature where you're really opening the body up and just getting movement in all limbs is very important. Something else that people really lack on is sleep and breathing. I will have another episode on just breathing and breathing techniques and why our breath is so important to us, so stay tuned for that as well. I'm excited for this Health Warrior series for you all. I hope you can learn from it just as I have. So sleep is so important. We really need to get a good 8 hours of sleep every night. I don't care if you are an infant or you're a 70-year-old. Our sleep is that time where our body does what we call a rest, digest, and restore. It really goes in and starts repairing everything that we've done through the day, digests the food, gives you the nutrients you need, sets you up for the next day. So if we're in this environment where we are on our phones all day, we eat up until the moment we go to bed, and we only sleep for 4, 5, 6 hours, your body doesn't have enough time to make that shift, to do those repairs to get you set up for the next day. So when you wake up the next morning, you jump out of bed and you start that cycle over and over and over and over, you're depleted, right? You're not putting money back in the bank. And that is what that's doing, is at night you're making that investment in yourself where you are building up that reserve to carry you through the next day. And if you keep this up where you're just every day, you're on that same track and we don't get enough sleep because there's so much to do in our day, you're depleting the bank and you're going to have a negative bank account sooner or later. And that truly, our immune system, again, the rest, digest, repair, is really where we need to be focusing our attention and putting money in the bank. And supplements are great. I wouldn't use those as a first resort. That would be a last resort. You can definitely supplement your life with good quality supplements. And then, just drainage and detox, but that comes through that process I just described. Exercise, water, etc. So I hope that this has been informative for you. I hope that you understand autoimmune diseases now. Again, I have lived with this, I'm going to say my whole life, because I didn't know what was going on with me until, several years ago. But once I understood what was going on with me and I got to the root cause, I can't tell you how much better I feel. So I'm sharing this information with you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you look forward to the additional Health Warrior series that's coming up. I hope you give this video a thumbs up or like it. Go to my Facebook page, Health and Wellness Bootcamp.com. If you'd like to leave some questions or something resonated with you, or you have some, something that I didn't address and you have a question you want answered, please drop it below and shoot me an email. My email address is healthandwellnessbootcamp@gmail.com, or I'm here at the Endeavor Center in Southern Ohio, and my address was posted there. So until next time, be whole. I wish you all the happiness in the world, and I'll see you on the next episode.